No, I was just gonna say that one of the things that I really enjoyed about living in Spain was just how easy it was to, in an hour I could be in a different country and have a totally different language, different culture, different food. Um, so if I had to choose, I would say I prefer, going to different countries just to get like a completely different experience. But even just traveling from one city to the next within a small area can sometimes be a totally different experience. For me, having lived in New York and then I moved to California and then I moved to South Florida, I've just got to move to Seattle to get all four corners. And even just with that, I could see how different the cultures are even within one country. So yeah, it's something that I definitely appreciate.
All right. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I would say different countries as well. I just love international travel and what Jessica was saying about the cultures, although it's absolutely true that within any country you still have different cultures, right? And but I always had this philosophy that I would keep. I have been to England and I have been to a fair amount of the United States, but that I would keep those till I got older just because they were less challenging, like the language is the same, navigating them is certainly in the United States, even though there's regional differences, it's still my country. I kind of have a good lay of the land feeling about it. So it's in that regard, it's a little less challenging. And I just knew like one day I'm still going to want to do it, but I'm going to be a little more tired. So why don't I do the really like the hard ones when I have more pizzazz, you know what I mean? So I kind of did that. So for me, the international has always been the one that jazzes me up a lot, but so does going to other states, I just like seeing the newness. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so how do you like to travel? Like, you know, I mean, obviously you have to take a plane if you're going overseas or somewhere, but if you're traveling, have you ever been on cruises actually? That's not a question that I had before you, but have you ever been on a cruise and then, stopped at different places?
I have been I've been on a couple cruises for work. The only cruises I've ever paid for out of my own pocket have been because my friends wanted to go on their bachelorette parties on cruises. Otherwise, I'm not a huge cruise person. I think I would do it in Alaska, Antarctica, maybe a river cruise. I did a river cruise in Europe once for work. That was nice. But like the major big cruises, I feel like I don't get enough time to really
Okay.
experience a destination when, you're kind of hopping in and out really quickly.
Right, right.
Um,
Which
plane
makes sense.
planes obviously get us farther, but I really enjoy train travel. If I could get
Okay.
everywhere by on a train, I would totally do that.
Did you do I think Amtrak a couple of years ago they had like a cross country uh
Mm.
like a train trip
I
thing?
read about that and it was funny because this a guy who did the trip said that it sounds really great, but then when you're actually doing it, unless you get one of the roomettes, basically you can't shower for almost 3 days, and it
Okay,
gets a
so
little
yeah,
messy on
that's
the train. So if when I have the roommate money, so I can have my own shower and everything, then
right,
I'll
right,
probably
right. Yeah,
then that sounds like a good idea.
that's the thought process. Because I thought that was really cool, but yeah,
Yeah.
with that, no, okay.
I've done 26 hours. I've done 26 hours on the Amtrak from
Wow,
Chicago to Boston. That
wow.
wasn't too bad. I slept for a lot of it.
Oh, you saw, okay. I was gonna say, did you
So,
like, you know, look out and see the scenery? Because I mean,
yeah, that too. When I did
yeah.
wake up, it was very nice to see kind of the open fields, and I've always lived in cities, so whenever
Hmm.
I get a chance to see more naturey landscapes, it always is really fascinating for me.
Okay.
Mhm.
Elizabeth, have you ever did the cruise thing or?
So yeah, it's funny. I was a total cruise skeptic, and I don't know that I'll ever become like a big, huge cruise person, but
Mhm.
I did Alaska and it was just so stunning. And then I did do a Caribbean one and I had a great time. And I think part of it was just, it was like intergenerational family trip. And it was sort of nice not to have to like logistically figure everything out every single day. Like, where are we going for breakfast?
Okay.
Where are we going for lunch? Should we get a cab? This person can't walk very well. Do we do, you know, it was sort of nice just to sort of have it right there in front of you and just spend time together. So I was surprised by how much I enjoyed being taken care of in that way. Because
Okay.
normally my traveling involves like just going and trying to figure it out, you know? So you know, it's probably because I'm a little older too. I was kind of like, all right, you're gonna bring me coffee, sir? Okay, then.
Okay, I think Robin, you have your hand up.
No, sorry. I was just fixing my computer.
Okay, because I see a little hand there. That's okay. Like, you know, like I said, this is a small group. You know, please, you know, if you have, you can raise your hand or you could just like interrupt me, you know, just, you know, if you have any questions, you know, about what we're talking about. So don't feel like, you know, you have to wait till I stop talking, you know, finish the questions and stuff. So, okay. So, so when you're traveling, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? Like the place, the weather? Is it good weather? Is it the you know, landmarks? Is it the cultural, like we were saying before? Is it all that? Like for where you want to go to? Like, you know, what trip you want to go to? Like, well, you know what? I want to go here because I want to know a little bit more about this type of culture or something, or I want to see this landmark.
I can tell you what we do. We try to go to a place, any place that does not have a McDonald's, because if it does not have a McDonald's,
Wow.
then we know that it's not Americanized.
Okay, that makes sense.
The true culture of the land.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what places, that's interesting, Robin. So what places have you been that had no McDonald's? Because I'm like thinking McDonald's is everywhere.
It is harder and harder, but Ethiopia,
okay,
Burma, even Vietnam, they have a KFC, but they didn't have a McDonald's. You know, really, Senegal.
Okay.
Even in Buenos Aires, they didn't have they had a lot of fast food places, but they didn't have McDonald's.
Wow.
So I think it's exciting to go to places that, you know, that don't have it. I mean, you can go to Europe, and Europe, all over Europe. We were in Denmark. Our last one was Portugal and Denmark, and McDonald's is, you know, is there. So yeah, I think it's a good. We have actually a trip. Oh, also in Egypt, there were no McDonald's when we were there. That has changed either. So that's kind of our goal, to go to places that doesn't not American.
That's so interesting. I like that. That's interesting, because it's like, okay, so it's like a challenge. It's like, okay, it's like, you know, like, who doesn't have you know, McDonald's? Let's see who doesn't have a McDonald's. Let's go there. Yeah. And see what they have. That's good. I like that.
We were even in 2 years ago, we were in India, and instead of going to the normal places that tourists would go to, we went all the way up to the border, the northeast border, where the indigenous people live, and they're all tribal people. And believe me, there are no McDonald's there.
Right, of course.
There's no fast food there. There's nothing there. But you're really in the heart of a country.
Right. Okay. You know what? Since Robin said that, you know, this question could be for everybody who ever traveled. You know, what do you look for? You know, what do you look for, like, when you're traveling? Just someplace to go? What Christina, what was so fascinating about Tennessee? Yeah. What was like, you just like, forget about Paris, let's go to Tennessee. What was so fascinating about that? And I'm going to pose that question to, like, Elizabeth and Jessica, well,
you get to go to Chattanooga and sleep on a train car on the Chattanooga Choo Choo.
okay.
And then you get to go to the Jack Daniel's distillery.
Oh,
and
okay.
the Jack Daniel's distillery is in a dry county. So you can watch them make it from beginning to end, but you can't have any of it, and nor can you buy it.
Oh.
Yeah. And then you get to go to Dollywood in Pigeon Forge and see where Dolly Parton grew up. And you get to go into her little church and her little house. And then they have weird rides where you're basically doing manual labor to make yourself go. But, it's fun. And they have they're big into mini golf and flapjacks. And it was just, I had the best time. And they had good food. You get to eat moon pies and stuff. And it was just really, and I drove across, and I think driving across, even driving like in a different state, in a different town, when you're driving somewhere and you get to pull off and, see places that you don't normally see and it's off the beaten path. I think it was really wonderful. Oh, and I also went on a train. They had a train in Dollywood, and I got soot all over myself because it was run by coal. So
okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything in Tennessee that you get, and
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was like you just like full flesh just went in. All right.
Yeah, and I got a lot of poetry out of it too.
I was gonna say, I hope you have a lot of poetry from that. Okay. Elizabeth, what was the most fascinating place like you've been?
Oh, that is really hard. I think every place has its fascinations. I just love to see how people, we all are human beings alive, and then we find these different ways to do things. And I just find it so interesting to see how people do things in other places, and like, here's normal for them and it's not for me, but the only reason is because I happen to grow up here and not there or something. I just find it really intriguing. So I love the cultural stuff a lot, whether it be sometimes like high culture and other times just, what are people doing? What are they eating? How do they function in their daily lives, But I have to say that one of the most fascinating places that I visited, but also had the good fortune to live in, is Istanbul, because so this was over 20 years ago, and I haven't been back in probably 15. So I know it has changed a lot, but when I was there, for example, there was no metro system. So it was kind of gritty and sprawling and a little difficult. Like, it wasn't an easy city in a lot of ways, but it was so amazing. It was just beautiful in this, it's true, East meets West, all the architecture, the mosques, the Bosphorus running through it. I love water. I love seawater. I love boats. And so I could get on these ferries and just like cruise back and forth while like US military tankers and tiny, tiny dinghies with fishermen were like floating by. And I don't know, it was just fascinating to me, the whole place. And the people were overall extremely welcoming. And, I just made some really great friends. And I would tell everyone, just go. It's such a special place, an unusual place, not the easiest place to travel,
Right.
but really worth it,
Right. Okay. Before Jessica, Teresa, you came in here. Teresa, hello. Teresa? Did she leave? Let me see.
Maybe the audio's not connected or something.
Yeah, let me. Oh, wait a minute, I just saw her. Did I ask her to unmute? Or did Teresa? Teresa? Can you hear? Teresa, we can't hear you. You need to unmute. Try coming out and coming back in again. Let's see. Teresa? Yeah, I don't think she's hearing. Let me see. Where is she? Teresa? Okay. I don't think she doesn't have her thing on.
It doesn't show that she's muted, so
Yeah.
she might have to do like how Robin did. Just
Yeah.
pop out and
Teresa, come back, go back out, and I'll let you back in. Let me see. I have to. Sorry. Did she leave? Let's see. Let me see. Okay. Teresa?
There's a second device, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, we can hear you. I know sometimes the first one. So, hi, Teresa. You want to just introduce yourself? Teresa? Okay. Teresa? Maybe Teresa's a little shy.
no, I saw her trying to unmute and mute her thing. So, oh, there you go.
No, we can't hear you.
No, Teresa, we can't hear you.
But she's putting in the chat.
She's typing in the chat, yeah.
Okay, let me see what she's doing. Yeah.
Teresa, there's a little arrow button on the microphone. If you click that, it'll like a menu will pop up with a bunch of different options, and it should tell you like which to choose an audio, and you could choose like your computer audio, for example. That might work.
Thank you, ladies, so much. It's like we got the Zoom experts. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Did that work?
Yes.
Yes.
There you are.
Okay. Hello,
Awesome.
Teresa. Hi,
Okay.
Teresa.
Hang on 1 minute. Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I'm sorry I'm late. Hello.
That's okay. So if you could just introduce yourself. Great.
Sure. My name is Teresa. Actually,
Teresa.
It looks like Teresa, but it's pronounced Teresa.
Okay,
and
Teresa.
yeah, and I'm a personal friend of Liz's, and I'm also a marriage and family therapist. And yeah, I was with clients, so I was trying to jump from one thing to another. Nice to see you.
All right.
Nice to see you too.
To
All
meet
right.
you.
Thank you for joining. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for the help with the audio too.
Yeah, that was Jessica, our guest speaker. And Jessica, so what is the most fascinating, where was the most fascinating place that you've been?
Fascinating place? That's interesting. I don't know. I would say one of my favorite places, I don't know if it was particularly fascinating, but it was, I just loved it. I loved Croatia. I went there 2 summers ago, and I got to spend almost 2 months there.
Wow.
And I just fell in love with that country because it has a little bit of everything. It has these really beautiful beaches, has really nice cities, and then they have waterfalls and forest, and just like there's so many different types of climates and different types of just vegetation and things that you could find, so I really enjoyed that. And I'm also a big Game of Thrones fan, so I really enjoyed going to all the Game of Thrones filming locations.
Wow.
That was cool. And I really love their cafe culture over there. They have lots of cafes, and people will go there and just sit for hours and hours. Nobody will rush you. and you can just go sit, and so I did a lot of writing that way.
Okay.
And I would just go sit in a cafe and write and people watch, and that was probably one of my favorite things about Croatia.
Was
So
that
all-
an assignment?
Say it again.
Was that an assignment or was that for fun?
No, that was for fun. I had actually just quit my full-time writing job when I decided to go do that trip. My little sister was studying abroad in Italy, so my family said, "Okay, Jessica, you're the traveler, plan a trip for us." So we met up with my sister in Italy, and then we went to Croatia. I was with my family for a week in Croatia. Then my best friend came and joined us, and she was
Oh, nice.
celebrating passing the bar. So then we went on a sailing trip together. And then when she left, I said, I'm already in this general vicinity of the world, and Oktoberfest is only 3 weeks away. I'm just going to hang out for 3 weeks until Oktoberfest pops around. So I stayed in Croatia, volunteering at a hostel, and got
Wow.
like free food and a bed to sleep in for volunteering at this hostel. And then when Oktoberfest rolled around, I took a bus up to Germany and did that, and that was fun.
Okay.
So yeah,
All right.
it was a very big fun summer, and I'm glad I got to do that before 2020 happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. So yeah, so this is a book publishing and roundtables. So it's about writing. So I'm glad that you did, you was mentioning about sitting around and writing.
Mhm.
So what is the process like when you're visiting these places? What is your writing process? Are you like taking notes? I know, okay, Robin, I know you're a photographer, so you're taking tons of pictures. What is do you take notes? Do you just take everything in and then you just full-fledged write it, you know, out of memory?
Mhm.
How do you like write? Because I know, all right, Jessica, you're more of like a blogger, so it's a longer like essays.
Mhm.
So how do you what is your process on that?
Yeah. So it kind of all starts with what is my purpose for being in that place, because when I'm traveling on an assignment versus when I'm just traveling for fun, my mindset is definitely different. When I'm traveling on an assignment for work, I'm definitely thinking about, who is this experience, like who would enjoy this experience? Who would enjoy this hotel? Who would enjoy this destination? Those are kind of the first few questions that I'm asking myself. Um, I'm also looking at the different details, if a lot of places call themselves luxury, but then I'm thinking, okay, like I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of a luxury traveler. What would they be looking for in a place like this? And that's always a challenge for me, because I've stayed in really nice, like a Ritz-Carlton, and then I've also volunteered in a hostel with 8 other people in the same
Right.
like bunk beds in the same room. So it's always, a matter of kind of changing that mindset of what are the expectations for a person who would be seeking out this kind of experience. I definitely do take a lot of photos. If I'm walking around on the go, sometimes I will take notes just straight in my phone, but I will still carry a notebook with me always, everywhere, because there's something about physically writing with a pen and paper that just makes the words flow differently.
Mhm.
And I'm sure most of you people can relate to that, because that's that's a common sentiment I hear from writers. And then other times, like if I'm just traveling by myself, one of the things that I really enjoy about traveling alone is that I can stop and write whenever the inspiration just hits me.
Right.
So like that summer, for example, that I was in Croatia, I went for a weekend in Slovenia, and there's this beautiful, it's called Lake Bled, and it's this beautiful lake with a tiny little island in the middle, and there's a church on that island, and you can hear the bells ringing, and there's swans, you know, just floating by, and you see people rowing the boats out to the island and stuff like that. And I just remember just really wanting to sit down and just stare at this island and write. And because I was alone, I could. So I just sat down under some tree and I was looking at the island, listening to the bells and watching the swans and just writing whatever thoughts came to mind. So a lot of times I find that things will come to me in little spurts, you know, like a phrase or a sentence, or and I'll write that down, and then from there I can kind of keep developing. Yeah, so I'd say that's mostly my process, you know, those kind of two different mindsets when I'm traveling for fun and I just want to write to because the words are coming and I'm gonna write them down and it's fun and I enjoy that, versus you know, an editor is waiting on me to tell them something about this
Right.
place.
Right. That's, yeah, it's like a little bit more business.
Mhm.
Before Elizabeth go on, so with Robin, so since you know, you're a photo journalist basically, right? And because I know you say you was having problems putting the words down. So Jessica, I don't know if you've done what Jessica has done, like, you know, take notes down, or you know,
I think
just the
I'm sorry
phrase
that
and
I didn't do
everything.
that as I went along, because now that I'm trying to publish something and put it together that way, to go back as long as I have my pictures, all my words are in that picture, but the actual names of places and the names of the people are gone. The
Okay.
places I might be able to look at my itinerary, and like I said, because I don't go to, you know, Paris to say, I mean, I have been to Paris, but I'm not writing about Paris. So it's hard to go back to the little teeny weeny places and the tribal names and all of that I didn't sit down and write. So to go back and
Okay.
try to do it, but I think in general in writing, especially if it's going to be like a coffee table book with photographs, there's a way of writing that about the picture itself and the place without putting those little details in. I think I've been studying everyone else's table, you know, coffee table photograph books to see how it's done. But
It's more poetic then. It's like more like poetic phrases or something that you could
yeah,
gather from that. Okay, gotcha. Because I thought you wanted to write more of a like an essay.
I wish I had done that from the beginning.
Okay, gotcha.
The books that I'm trying to put together start from, you know, 20 years ago.
Okay, gotcha.
For example, if I took a picture of bicycles in Italy, I took pictures of bicycles in Lesotho. You know, I took pictures of bicycles in Hawaii. But now to go back and compile a whole book on these interesting bicycles, for example, is hard to get the words
Come out.
that I
Okay.
didn't unfortunately get like Jessica did.
Okay. Okay.
You know,
All
it's
right.
interesting. Before I was started freelancing, I worked at a university in the study abroad office, and I went to a conference and this woman was speaking about research that she had done about how people remember their trips, and kind of she wrote a book, I think, well, I have it there. I think it's called The Happy Traveler.
Oh yeah.
And so she taught a class called like The Science of Happiness or something like that. And they went to Denmark, of course, to study happiness. And so one of the experiments that she did with her students, she had 3 groups of students and told them to go into a museum. The first group, she told them, I want you to go in and take pictures of all of the paintings in the museum. The second group, she told them, I want you to go in and take, you know, pictures of the paintings that have like a red triangle or something. She gave them something specific to look for. And then the last group, she told them, you know, I want you to go in and don't take any pictures at all, just look at the paintings. And then later she was speaking with them and trying to see who remembered more from the from the experience. And the students who took pictures of everything remembered the least, because they were just going in and just snap, 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 and not like really interacting with not being present in the moment. And the students who remembered the most were the ones who were looking for something specific, because they were really, you know, they had to be very conscious of what they were looking at and what they were doing. And so I'm sure as a photographer, you are very conscious of what you're doing when you're taking a photo. And so that's something that I always try to remember is, you know, not just to like snap, 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 and, you know, without really paying attention, and to kind of be more intentional about that.
It's
That was one
interesting
exercise that she had mentioned that she does.
for everybody else who travels, if you experienced your travel through one object or one theme, it's a different travel experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Elizabeth, so what is how do you do it? Are you taking notes, or you just bringing it in?
Well, I started traveling when I started really traveling in earnest. Obviously there were no smartphones. You took photos, but you had your camera, and it wasn't even digital at the time. And so you didn't see your photos till who knows when, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because usually you weren't really spending time developing them on the road either. And I love to write, and I just always had the notebook, and I still do. Sometimes I will take notes, like if it's something very like a super specific detail right in that moment, but I'm not lingering. I might take a few notes here, but I really prefer, like, I agree exactly with what Jessica said about just the tactile feeling of the notebook and the pen and the flow and all of that. I just find it really great. And there are so many great places to sit and do that, whether they be in nature or in some great cafe and some culture that lets you really linger and enjoy it and chat with other people. And it's just something special. And so I do also feel that I do love the convenience of the smartphone and the photos that you can get, and how you can record things, like, again, more on the fly, but like, oh, what's the address of that place? What's the name of that place? You just take a picture of it, have it for later. That's really handy. But the danger, I feel, is you really start looking through the smartphone at everything instead of just looking at everything. And you take too many pictures, and it becomes about, you're like almost anxious. Did I get a picture of that? And then that takes away from, so I try to keep that a little, a little on the side. And I always notebook.
Right. Okay. That
It's
sounds
a tough
good.
balance sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. So what would you say to people if they want to like start travel writing? Well, we already got some good things. So I think the takeaway is like you should take notes. I think that's one of the biggest takeaway is like you take notes, pictures, yes, but don't go crazy, like what Elizabeth was saying, and just try to like take everything in. Any other like suggestions that you would like give to someone who, like Judy, she's like living through you guys precariously. She doesn't travel that much, but is there like, maybe there's places that, Judy can, JR could go to with her dogs and still feel, have that feeling of being somewhere and gathering. And I'm sure Judy, JR, I'm sure you've done this already. Like, you know what I'm saying? You've been to places, and you just feel like, okay, it's a faraway place, even though it's local, so.
Well, actually, I loved your question earlier of, what's, your favorite place. When I was younger, actually, before I was married, we traveled as a family, and we kind of settled into a place called Denver, Pennsylvania, which is smaller than its name on the map. And the only thing they had was an ice house.
An ice house.
An ice house. So there was like
Wow.
no post office, no stores, nothing.
Wow.
Denver had an ice house and a campground. And so we'd go to the ice house and get ice and then go to the campground.
Wow.
But it was so rural, so not Long Island, so not what I was accustomed to. That
Right.
and I spent 15 summers there. So
Wow.
I go back in my head, and that's a source of a lot of my, you know, the dichotomy kind of poems. You know, it's what's not Long Island, and so
Mhm.
oh
Right.
yeah, that works. You know, that works for me.
Right. Denver. I've never even heard of
I
that.
know.
Yeah, me
It's
neither.
tiny. It's a time. When you see it on the map, it's a tiny little nothing. Go away. It's a, you know, the only time the phone rings is when you're sitting on, you know, with your mom.
Yeah, so it always happens that way.
And it's all spam, you know.
But that's
Yeah.
great though. That's great though. So you can always go back to that place, and I'm sure you like remember a lot of different things.
And pictures. Oh,
Yeah. Oh, you
hundreds
have
and
pictures
hundreds of
of it.
pictures. So yeah, and it brings back a lot of, you know, family kind of, you know, things, all the before things, you know, before I was married, before we had dogs, before. And so yeah, it's kind of nice.
Mhm.
Okay. So so all right. So this is a question. This is a question. I guess this is gonna be like more so for Jessica, because like I was saying before. So with travel writing,
Mhm.
I mean, obviously you can make money out of it. It just depends on where you go for it.
Mhm.
You know, any suggestions, like if people, you know, want to do this, you know, what you're doing, like, you know, you
Mhm.
have a client, you know,
Yeah.
how would they go about doing, you know, getting like a gig, a paid, you
Mhm.
know, traveling writing gig?
Yeah. Um, so I think a lot of with travel writing is kind of what, you know, we had spoken about before we all got on the call together, is that I've been appreciating, or I've been learning how to appreciate more of my local surroundings. And a lot of times it's very easy to overlook where you're from. I think, you know, I lived in New York and until I was 15 and we were moving to California, my parents said maybe we should like go to the Empire State Building or something before we
Yeah.
leave New York, you
Yeah.
know? So it's very easy to not do the things that
Hmm.
your home is known for, not to explore it with those eyes of a tourist. So I always say that that's the place to start, because before somebody's going to, you know, take a chance on sending you to the Maldives or something like that, which I haven't gone yet, but I'm putting it out there. I need somebody to send me. You know, before somebody's going to trust you to do that, they want to see what you can do in low risk, you know, situations. So I always say to start writing about where you're from, what you already know, is definitely a good place. And there are a lot of resources out there. For me, one of the biggest hurdles was learning how to pitch an editor an idea, and how to kind of differentiate a topic of I'm interested in this general topic versus what is the specific story idea and the specific angle on this topic. You know, it's the difference between telling an editor, "Oh, I'm going to Chattanooga. I want to write about Chattanooga. Do you want a story about that?" versus telling them, "I want to write a story, um actually something I'm going to write soon is about why Chattanooga is a great work from home destination." You know, so it's like a specific thing about that place. Um so that those are probably two of the biggest things. Don't be afraid to pitch editors, because that was a big thing for me, that I was afraid of the rejection, but then even when I got it, it's like, okay, whatever, move on to the next one.
Right.
gain nothing by not trying. And there definitely is money to be made in travel writing. I think it's about finding the publications that pay well and developing relationships with those editors. So I have a habit of when an editor accepts one story from me, now we are in a long-term relationship, and once I'm done writing that one story for them, I'm like, hey, what about this idea? And then
Right,
they say
right.
yes to
You
that.
keep
I'm like,
going.
okay, and what about this one? I just keep going and going, because that's also a lot easier than cold pitching a million times. So when I first started, it was a lot of cold pitching, a lot of silence. I definitely had more silence than actual no's, which sometimes kind of felt weird in this limbo. How many times do I follow up with you, or are you just really not into my idea and can't be bothered to tell me no? I don't know. So yeah, so developing those relationships. And then also, I think something that a lot of travel writers learned in the pandemic is how to write travel adjacent stories. So it doesn't always have to be specifically about a destination, about what you can do or see there. Sometimes it's about, something that I wrote early on in the pandemic days was about international couples and how the pandemic was affecting them. I was inspired by my own situation because my boyfriend at the time was now fiance. It's a new
Congratulations.
development. He's Colombian, and so we were here visiting my family in the States when all of this happened. And so it was this weird limbo of, what do we do? You have your tourist visa, we don't want to mess that up, but I didn't want to go to Colombia in the middle of all of COVID and things like that. And so from that inspiration of my own situation, I started looking for other couples who are in similar situations, and ended up finding quite a few. So that was kind of like a travel adjacent story. It's not about what you can do or see, but it's about how the current situation is affecting travelers and people who enjoy that.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah,
So you
thinking outside of the box.
right.
That story.
Say it again.
I'd like to read that story.
I can send you guys the
link. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so it is, let's see, I'm on track. So are there any questions from anyone else about, what's going on? Christina, Judy, Robin, Kara, Teresa. I'm messing up your name, Teresa. Teresa.
That was pretty good.
Because I almost say I'm like Teresa. Bonnie, any questions for like Jessica or Elizabeth, like that? I didn't touch upon that. On your personal journeys, that you would like to know, or from anyone, because like I said, it's a round table, so it could be a question to like anyone basically. Of about the travel writing. Yes.
So Elizabeth, are you the poet, or is JR the poet?
We're both poets, and so is Christina.
There's a poet
We're all
too.
poets.
And so is Christina, and so is Sandra. There's a lot of poets in this little room.
So
yeah, I'm a poet too.
I'll ask you. So I understand, when you travel, you can write down everything, but how do you turn that writing into a poem? Do you do that on the spot, or does it take a while to compile all that and turn it into a poem?
It kind of both. It really depends, So sometimes it's on the spot. Like sometimes I would sit down with the intention of writing poetry, actually, That doesn't mean it's the finished product, but I sit down with the intention of writing poetry, and I do that. I would say that nowadays, and that's I haven't traveled really this year. So in the more recent years when I travel, it's been more of just journaling enough that I retain what I need to retain, and then turning it, crafting it later.
Okay.
I'm not sure why that changed, but there it is, And so what's interesting for me when I was doing this chapbook is it became something about form, and it's not really super formal, but I was playing a lot with syllables and with meter and stuff like that. But the ideas were there for a long time. Like some of these experiences are from 20 years ago, So it was just interesting to me to see that, like, how is it coming out like that? And then for the manuscript of the travel memoir, some of the same sort of scenes are there, but I it's a personal essay, so you're fleshing it out in such a different way, So that was pretty interesting for me. And I think a lot of it, if I didn't sit down intentionally to write poetry, a lot of it ends up being really descriptive and a lot about whatever I'm going through emotionally at the moment, which is probably super fascinating to me, but like not to the world at large. So, so it's good to take a step back and craft it into something different later, And that's what I tend to do more and more. I've noticed. Yeah.
Right.
Would you say your poems are inspired by travel, about travel, or both?
In this, 100% both.
Mhm.
And then I have others that are not necessarily specifically travel related. But I just really had the idea for a while, because travel and living in other cultures has been such a big part of my life, that I really, really wanted to put those experiences together as poems in one place,
Mhm.
So that was a very specific when it was actually a poetry month thing that I was like, okay, let's try to, start putting this together. And my intention at that time was to just capture different experiences of travel that I had done, whether it be just descriptive kind of short things or more sort of narrative about experiences that was happening, or just reflection on some cultural thing.
Mhm. Very nice.
Very nice. Anyone else have any questions?
What are your favorite authors to read, or publications to read that incorporate travel in some way?
Good question.
Mhm.
If anything.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I fell out of the habit of reading, which as a writer is so terrible.
Yeah, me
I
too.
okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one. I fell out of the habit just, because of being so busy with work and, pre working as a freelancer and even in some ways more so now. But I would say I read a lot of Travel and Leisure, which is one of the publications that I write for. It's like different things for different types of travel writing. So if I'm looking, usually Travel and Leisure has kind of more light stories, whereas Condé Nast might have a little bit more in-depth profiles of interesting people and that kind of thing. Those are probably the two that I read the most. And then for just fiction, this is her first book, her debut novel, Queenie. I really enjoyed that book. It's just a very relatable book about a 25-year-old Black British Jamaican woman, and she's a journalist, and she had, just talking about her life and things like that. And I really enjoyed reading that book because it showed kind of how important writing about what you know is, because reading just the conversations that she was describing in the book, I could tell, okay, this author is definitely a Black British Jamaican woman. And then when I looked her up, she was a Black British Jamaican woman. Like, you could just tell the authenticity in the conversations. And it's not, somebody sitting down like, I think this is what young people sound like when they speak. I'll write it this way. It was really writing about her life. And So well, not her life specifically, but you could
Right.
tell she was drawing from a place of knowledge, which I really appreciated that. So
Yes.
Candace Cardi Williams is her name. Yeah, that's it for me for now.
I like, there's some fun anthologies from a publisher called Traveler's Tales that do different short personal essays. Some of them are humorous, some of them are, you know, like the best women's travel writing. They call from different sources. Sometimes they're country specific, and those can be really, really fun because you can dip in and out, you know. I like, you know, talking about the travel adjacent, I feel like food and the food cultures of places is also really interesting to me. And so I like, you know, Anthony Bourdain. Apparently there's a posthumous book that's coming out very soon. And things like cookbooks from places, because I feel like you get such an insight. It's one of my favorite things to do, is also to just go to a grocery store and wander around and see this, you know, what products there are there. You know, I remember being in Nassau, the Bahamas, and it was morning and it was a school day. So there was a dad and his girls, and they were just beautifully and perfectly dressed in their pristine uniforms, and they were like on the way to school, but they were stopping in at the corner grocery. And so we go inside and we're looking around, and it's like everything familiar, you know. It was just like, oh, we have this is all the same, all the same, all the same. And then there was that little deli part in the corner where it was like all the tongue and the oxtail and the this and the goat and the that. And then you're like, yeah, I'm in another place. This is cool, you know.
Cool.
So I like things like that as well. And I like some of the classic, like, people like, I do like to go back to some of those classic travel writers sometimes, like Bruce Chatwin, or oh, what's now, I lost the title, but
Don George, I think.
yeah, Don George. And even older things like I'm sorry, I had it on the tip of my tongue and I even took a note. Now I can't remember.
It'll come back.
It'll come back. It'll come back. Things like
You're gonna remember
I'll
it.
get it
Like,
for you.
yeah, you're gonna remember it at like 2 in the morning. And
I
you can
will.
text me
No, I
anytime,
wrote it
and
down.
that's
I
fine.
wrote it down.
Yes.
I wrote it down, I swear, just to avoid this kind of thing. But anyway, more classic stuff like out of Africa, or, you know, like sort of literary older ones, because I just find them to be, it's interesting to see the perspective and the perspective shift. Do you know what I mean? From something that was written by one type of perspective in a very different world compared to what it would be like today. And I just find that kind of thing pretty interesting. And then, you know, you read some stuff and you think, why? You find some stuff that's pretty offensive for what we think of nowadays as what would be appropriate. And you're like, but they're still lauding this person, and why, you know? So it's an interesting discussion, because I think things that are acceptable ways of speaking about other cultures that you're not part of, I think it's important. I think you need to have different perspectives, but the way it was done in the past is really sort of interesting to look at and kind of go, okay, that's interesting. It's not the same. It's maybe good.
That was a good question. That was a good question.
Thank you both. Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions for anyone? No?
Okay, I'll ask another question.
Okay.
So how do you get beyond your procrastination?
Oh man.
You assume I get beyond it.
Yeah.
That's a good writer's question. Yeah.
I am a terrible procrastinator. I have always been my entire life. So I don't know if I'll ever get past it, but something I just, it's the pressure. It makes me perform better. But I do have this handy dandy cube on my desk that when I turn it over here, okay, now it's a 30-minute timer. And then so it'll go off at 30 minutes. So sometimes I just time myself. I'm like, all right, put the phone away, close all the tabs, 30 minutes, do this, and then I'll give myself a 5-minute break. So sometimes I just do that, and
It's a good little trick
to keep me on task. But procrastination, I think I just need to accept as a part of my personality at this point.
I like that. It's my personality.
Build in the buffer zone, right?
Yeah. Yes.
For me, I find like my big problem is, so I'll do everything longhand for the first draft of like everything that I care about, as a piece of writing that I think I want to feel connected to, that I really want to create. I mean, obviously, if it's like a work related thing that I need to do, or an email, I'm typing it, but all the creative stuff that it's always longhand. It's always, so even the big long manuscript was longhand. And my problem is then I have to type it. And when it's a big long manuscript, I just don't enjoy that very much. I'm not the best typist in the land. And so for me, the torturous part is that, but the good part is that as I'm typing it, that becomes my second draft. So it's kind of like, as I'm typing it, I'm editing it. But when it's really long, I wish I was one of those, like famous writers who had like the assistant that typed everything for them. And then
you can use Dragon.
It seems to not be that easy for me. I don't know. But you know what? Here's the thing, Sandra. I say that, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe forcing myself to type it that way does help me with the editing process. It's possible, but it just feels so onerous. So that's where the procrastination comes from me.
I mean, doesn't it, like when you do, because I start off with longhand, and then when I go into typewriter, it's a totally different like thing I'm writing. I mean, I have some aspects of it in my longhand, but it's a new manuscript anyway, so I guess I don't know. Yeah. So,
I mean, it has to be done, but I just have a lot of affection for the first draft and the longhand and the paper I really do. It just feels more organic and somehow like I'm connected to it. You know what I mean? And then once I start typing it, it becomes like, not exactly work, but it's like a different thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense. Yeah.
No, it totally makes sense.
Yeah. But I know what you're saying about assistant though. I just read a finished reading about Langston Hughes and Calvin Beckner, and they had back in they had their little assistants, and I'm like, yeah, wow, I wish I had one too. I totally get that. All right, so no one has any more questions, we got a treat. Miss Elizabeth. It is Poetry Month. So Miss Elizabeth has her This World poetry book, and she's going to be reading some poetry for us. So let's listen up. And then we have a little surprise at the end.
Thank you. Thank you. So just one second. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to, with your indulgence, dedicate this little portion, this reading part, to my mother, Naomi Fonseca. Her maiden name is Roach, and she passed away on Friday night at 10:10, and I was at her bedside. And I'm dedicating this to her, but I'm also remembering my father, who passed away 6 months ago. And they were wonderful parents, and they helped me start my whole travel journey by taking me and my brothers, taking us to our, family ancestral places, which were Spain on my father's side and Ireland on my mother's. And those were my first 2 international trips. And they absolutely, I had the inkling, but they solidified that proclivity. And I said, I got to see this world. There's a whole world out there and it's so big and I'm so curious about it. And let's go, So anyway, this is for Mom. So I'm going to start with a couple of haikus from Ireland. And these are very landscape related, I realize, because that was one of the things that really struck me there. Aran Islands, moonscape, porous gray rocks stretch flat to a gray-green sea. Stark, land, lonely. Kerry, Ring Road. Hills spill waves of green over land, racing to sea, bowing to blue there. Dingle Bay. Dolphin comes to play, sleek gray bullet dancing, waves opening, closing. So that was the second international trip, and the first was to Spain. And I'm going to do a little nod to that. My father's family's from the north of Spain, from a province called Asturias. And they don't really make wine there, but they make cider, sidra. There's a lot of apples. It's like not what most people think of when they think of Spain, I think. The image they have, it's hilly and it's mountainous and it's green and it's rainy and it's got a lot of Celtic influence, and they make cider. They don't make wine. And there's a whole ritual of how you pour it, okay, and how you share it with people and share the same glass. And if you go there, they'll make you drink it. Maybe not in COVID times, because that could be a little unsafe, right? But they'll make you drink it. You share it together. They'll also make you pour it, and they'll laugh at you a lot, but that's okay. Sidra. Apple orchards ripe with crimson orbs, bedazzled by the rare sunshine. Pressed, fermented, sweet liquid turns to cider in old oak barrels. From above your head, pour golden liquid into glass. Drink bubbles, tartness. Welcome to Sidra, Asturias, northern Spain. Mountains, farmland, home. Share the glass again. And the second one I'll do from Spain is from the south. It's from Granada, which is one of the cities that had a very big Moorish influence. When the Moors were in Spain, culturally and politically, having basically almost all of Spain as part of their leadership. And they have the probably what you'd think of a little more typically of Spain, which is the houses with the courtyards and the fountains and the tiles and all of that. And these are gardens for the Alhambra. So there are gardens next to the castle there in Granada. And it's called Generalife. Glorious gardens. Among arched buildings, you nestle in courtyards, make way for fountains. Catch the restless eye and set us wandering, following alluring cascades of color, grounded in deep green scent of honeysuckle hedges, mingling with sun's heat. Dazzle me, colors of flowers. Dazzle me, pinks and reds. Flash of fuchsia, glimpse of white. Delight, delight, delight. And so I never, like Jessica did, I never did volunteer in a hostel, but I spent plenty of times in hostels back in my 20s when I was backpacking around. And, sometimes you fall in love, as you do. So sometimes, it works and sometimes it doesn't. So this was Munich, and it's called Easter Pharmacy, 24 hours. Easter, sick and alone. I force myself from that small home up the street to the metro. So empty. Everyone off to loved ones' homes, eating Easter dinner, and clinking glasses to new life. I arrive at the Hauptbahnhof, also eerily silent. Few trains. Most stores closed as everyone stops for a day with family, friends, remembering bonds, celebrating new life. I find the 24-hour pharmacy. I climb the steps from the tracks, cheeks burning, my fever strong enough to push me out of bed, push me from under the rough blanket of my loneliness, strong enough to bring me here, a ghost of heartache. He is back home with his friends. I, already knowing we are not falling together, but I, in love, alone, open the door, suddenly cold, and ask the only person I've seen that day to help. So look, I couldn't stick around for that, right? I mean, come on. So this is called Johannes Cafe Goodbye. We're still in Munich. On a cobblestone square in Munich, I rode a bike in the rain one night, not wanting to leave. We'd been in Johannes Cafe one last time with friends. He left, I stayed, drank more with them, my flight back to New York, drawing closer, and unable to think of a way to stay, knowing it wasn't working. I was leaving, not wanting to leave, even this night, this cafe, these wet cobblestones. Not ready for goodbyes, I grabbed a bike, rode around and around the square, past all the German syllables, 23 years old, full of romance and heartbreak, wondering when the drama of my life would unfold, sensing this was part of a big story named love, travel, adventure, whose pages I would return to, but then knowing only I didn't want to leave, didn't know how to stay. So rode that bike around and around the wet night square, refusing to stop, unable to say goodbye. But then, you know, sometimes you fall in love again. One leaves, another comes back. Sometimes it can work out. This is called Germany, Italy, New Love. Takes place mostly in Italy. I met you in the middle of heartbreak, but knew when I heard your name, you would be a force in my life. Later, about that first meeting, you said you could feel my loneliness. I fell in love with you as I fell in love with your life, your home, an old rectory in a tiny village, out the back door, rows of tomato fields and new kittens playing. Inside, huge leather-bound tomes of Aquinas, heavy black Latin letters, traveling the page under peeling mosaics in rooms with old windows clouded over. You took care of me, cooked me fresh peas in broth, took me to eat spaghetti in a magical place where peacocks strutted just outside the door. You took me in. You nursed me well. That was the start. You, Italy, buildings old and lovely, summer sun transforming green globes to red that you would pluck and cook while I dreamed and read. God resting in his shuttered house, kittens playing at our feet. And a little change of scene to the Czech Republic, where I lived in Prague, but I got to go to the countryside a bunch of times because there was a friend there, and we got to see just some really traditional village life and customs. So this is called May Day. May Day in the village. A tree of pine or fir is lashed to a long pole. Young men gather laughing, drinking beer, free and vibrant in the spring air. There's a hole they'll put the pole in upright. That's the goal. And all along Bohemian countryside, fir trees will perch on poles up in the sky. Tied on bits of colored ribbon, ride the breeze. Below, girls laugh, boys look. Up high, incongruous, that tree they say won't die. And I'm just going to do one more that is related to my mother in this way. My mother loved to have people over and to share a meal and to invite people to dinner at nice restaurants and have good food and drink and conversation. And this is related to that, although the circumstances are very different. It's about food and it's about sharing it. And I would like to end with this. It's called Eating, and it was the Orinoco Delta, Venezuela. So it was with, it was a big trip into a remote area, obviously not so remote that tourists never went there, but it was not a common place for people to go. And met some indigenous people who took us around and showed us how they lived. Eating. In the lush tangle of the forest, unseen monkeys chatter and dart above us in the deep green fronds and leaves. We walk through the damp, shoes sinking, everywhere dense and green. Our guide shows us the blood tree whose sap runs red and strikes another's root, which echoes loudly. Farther on, he fells a narrow palm, one whack of his machete. He offers us fresh heart of palm. I've never eaten anything so new. He turns away, excited, rummages in a fallen log. He comes back with his offering of grub, so wide, so fat, so sickly, yellow-white, I want to turn. Cleaned with rum from his handy flask, he stretches his hand to me. The grub wriggles. It's thicker than his squat thumb. Unable to be a gracious guest, slightly ashamed. Oh no, I'm full, I protest. Thank you, just the same. He shrugs and deftly bites, spits out the head, and pops the rest into his mouth, chewing. He swallows, shakes his head. Sabor de mantequilla, he said, downing another sip from his flask. To him, I'm strange. He's not so off the mark. The opportunity I've lost, the chance to taste buttery goodness, fresh from the source, alive in the rain. And I'd like to thank Sandra for pulling us together like this. It is another kind of feast. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's beautiful, a beautiful tribute.
Thank you.
And so Girls Read to Write, we love to give away books and things. So we're going to give away 2 of Elizabeth's books. Plus, you get a travel bag, a worldly travel bag with some goodies going to be in there.
Goodies.
Yeah, some goodies, some travel goodies. And of course, a mask. A matching world mask.
Nice, nice.
And these were like, these were custom made, so you can't find them anywhere. Right? Woman on my job, she made it for me, for you guys. So I'm gonna pick 2. Now, my issue is this, because I have 2 poets. Do you have her book? Christina and
Judy.
AR? No? All right. So I'm gonna pick 2 winners. Everybody's in it that's in here. Jessica, I could get you a book. Okay, I'll make arrangement to get your book.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so the first winner, put on the tiny, Bonnie.
Yay!
Bonnie is the first winner. And I'm not looking, right? I'm not looking. Let's see. Teresa, did I say your name?
Wow. That's
Yeah.
exciting.
So, yes, and yes. But JR and Christine, your names were in here too. I don't know if you can see, your names were in here too. I put your names in here too. I'll put your name. So I will email you both a form so you could give me your address, and I will mail your presents, your gifts out. So you each get Elizabeth's book, mask, and a travel bag with goodies.
Yay!
Aw,
Yay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
congratulations.
Yeah, so I love to give away giveaways. So we are coming to the end. I do have a poll. If you can all fill it out for me. I am posting it. Can you see launch polling? Okay, I gotta launch it. Okay. Can you all see it? I hope.
Yes.
Sandra, do you want us, Jessica, do you want us to do it too?
Yeah, you
Or
can
just-
do it too. You can do it too, just to see, because hopefully, you could be invited to as a participant, as a guest for something else I
Sure.
want to do. I haven't figured it out yet, but y'all can tell me privately like what I don't think I have it on this polling of you could, everybody can email me privately, like say, hey, Sandra, I would like to, have something, some type of other theme thing. And I try to get it together. But this been great. I hope everyone, got something out of it. So, I think it was good. I think it was good. And thank you, Elizabeth and Jessica, for giving us all your knowledge and everything. It's been great. Thank you, everyone. Yes, you give it.
Thanks.
Just thank you, everyone,
Thank
for
you.
coming in and making it happen. Like I said, I hope you got something out of it. Robin, I hope you got something out of it. Therese, Bonnie, Cara, Judy, I hope you got something out of it too. And Christina, and those some good questions, and Jessica too, and Jessica and Elizabeth. I hope you got something out of it.
Yeah, definitely.
And thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. Did everybody finish doing the polling?
Yeah.
Can I
Yes.
end it?
Lost mine.
Everybody did it?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to end the polling, and thank you very much. And
Wait, Sandra, do we have your direct email if we want to email you and ask you something?
it is this is what I wanted to ask you. Did you all I know I sent it out like 2 hours before the event. Did you get the email from Eventbrite? Because
Yes.
I had so it was a packet. It was the workbook. So I believe I have my email there, but it's
Okay.
info.
Sandra,
Yes.
sorry, Kara didn't get it. She's saying she didn't get it. Could
Yeah,
should she put her email in the chat, and maybe you could send it to her?
Okay. So all right. But yeah. So you didn't get it from Eventbrite?
Actually, I want to mention, because Sandra sent that to us, and it's got lots of information also about like the latest COVID travel restrictions. And as a person coming from Florida to New York tomorrow, I'm thrilled that first of all, I hope everyone stays safe. But personally, I'm very glad that the travel restriction now for going back to New York from another state is we don't have to get tested like we did a month ago or whatever if you're asymptomatic. So some things are opening up, you know, you just got to keep on top of it because it does change constantly.
Right, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, so the information, I will send it out. I will send it out again with the recording of this. And sorry, like I said, I got it in the middle of it, but I got majority of this recording, including right now. And yes, it has a lot of information in it. I would just say, if you're thinking about traveling, yes, to go on to the CDC and get the update. I got the most updated for this week. But like I said, when you're thinking about traveling, you may want to go back to there and see, because they have like a lot of like what's safe, what's not safe. They put numbers on it, like 4 is bad, 1 is okay. So it's just like information. The whole packet has like some information also about copywriting, also about scams, what to look for in the scam. And I did put a little bit of some publications there too, that may be helpful. Hopefully they're good. Jessica, I don't know if you saw it in the workbook or whatever, but hopefully those are good. I try to research it for my self to make sure that those are like legit places, but some are legit places. I know National Geographic, that's legit. So but I thank you, everyone. And yes, Kara, I will resend it to you. All right, I gotta look in the chat just to make sure that I have your correct, let me see, your correct email. Yeah.
I just added to the chat the story
Thank
that
you.
Robin said that she wanted to read about
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
people dating with their different passports. So
Yeah,
if you
thank
want to check
you.
that out.
Yes, thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Jessica. This has been great. Yes, I have. I don't know why you didn't get it. Okay.
Okay.
I have the same, Kara, I have your email, and I will send it out. Okay?
Thank you.
And we still have a little time, but you know what? We're good. Anybody have any other questions like that you just might thought about and it's like, hey, I wanted to ask this before we leave? No? All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming in here and just having a good conversation about travel writing. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I hope you did. And I will say good night.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Sandra.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks
All right.
everyone for
Thank
coming.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you,
Bye.
Jessica.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.